have two events on this week separated by a day, and I've decided to do them both in one video. I'm following the format, the new format, so I'm only doing a few predictions for each, but you'll find all my predictions for all of them at the end of the video. So I'm going to put a touch on UFC on FX6 first. This is the one in Australia, headlined by George Sotiropoulos and Ross Pearson. You know, they're headlining about George. He's coming off 2 losses in a row, but he is fantastic, I think, anyway. He's a very good submission specialist. 14-4 is his record. He's fighting Ross Pearson, who's sort of well known on the English circuit. 13-6. A bit of a dodgy record. Win-loss, win-loss, win-loss. Do you know, I'm interested to see here what Ross Pearson does, whether he can go to ground here or not. I'm not going to say that I think George will submit him. I'm actually going to go for a George decision victory there. Mike Pierce is fighting Seth Baksinski, and I think this is closer than people might think. 15-5 for Mike on a 2-fight win streak. Seth is 18-8 on a 6-fight win streak. I tend to think that Mike Pierce might win this one, and it took a lot of thinking to decide who I thought would win that one. Probably TKO, but I'm not completely sure, to be honest. Igor Pokrajic is fighting Joey Beltran. A tough one for me because I like Igor and I do like the Executioner as well. He's not had such a good time recently. 14-8 is his record. A lot of that 8 has happened sort of rather recently. And here's the problem. He's fighting another person who's a striker. A striker with a better record than him, 25-9. OK, Igor is coming off a loss, but here's the thing. Joey Beltran doesn't do very well if it ends up going to decision, and that's sort of what I think will probably happen here. I'm going to go for an Igor decision victory. Chad Mendes is fighting Hakran Diaz. 12-1 for Chad, 21-1 for Hakran. He's sort of a shootout import, but I don't know anybody on his record. Whereas Chad Mendes, I think, is pretty good. So I'm going to go for Chad on that, but I don't know how. And finally for this card, Hector Lombard is fighting Rousimar Palhares. Now, this is stand-up versus submission here. And the question will be, can Rousimar Palhares manage to get the submission in the first round? He's big on heel hooks, is Palhares, and I imagine that's what he's going to try for here, because Hector is an American top team fighter who's never been finished. His record, 31-3, dwarfs Rousimar, who's only got 14-4. He's just coming off a loss by split decision. And this is what I think. If Rousimar fails to get the submission in the first round, I think it will end up being curtains. So I tend to think that Hector Lombard might get his TKO victory in the second there. Also on the card, they've got Nick Penner versus Cody Donovan, Brendan Loughnane versus Mike Wilkinson, Ben Alloway versus Manuel Rodriguez, Colin Fletcher versus Norman Park, and Robert Whittaker versus Brad Scott. And those you can see my decision, predictions for at the end of the video. The other thing that's going on is the TUF 16 finale. You know, I have to say that I haven't watched any of this season of TUF at all. However, I actually like the card better because there are a lot of people on it that I feel that I know. I'm going to start with their main event, which is Roy Nelson versus Matt Mitrione. I've met Matt Mitrione and I do hope that he manages to win, but I don't see it myself. Record 5-1. He's fighting somebody who's also a striker with a record of 17-7. I tend to think Roy Nelson will probably get the TKO victory in the third there. He generally tends to beat everybody he fights except for really high calibers. Jared Papazian is also on the card fighting Tim Elliott. He's on a 2-loss streak, in fact, unfortunately, with a record of 14-8. I hope that he makes his comeback here and can get a win, but I'm going to go and say decision. I don't see him finishing here. Ruben Duran is also on the card. He is against Hugo Viana. Now, Hugo Viana has a perfect record of 6, but he's got no names on his record. All his wins are by decision, and almost half of them are by split decision. Ruben Duran, on the other hand, 8-3, often wins by submission. Win-loss-win is his recent record. I'm going to go for him. I think he'll probably win by choke submission in the second. Mike Pyle is fighting James Head. 23-8 versus 9-2 here. It is striker versus groundsman, with Mike Pyle having 16 submission victories out of those 23. He's also not bad record recently. Win-win-win, loss, win-win. I think he will win this one as well. Again, probably a choke submission in the second. Dustin Poirier is fighting Jonathan Brookins. Dustin Poirier did very, very well, and then he came up against somebody who managed to submit him, and it's the same guy whose name escapes me because he's Oriental and I can't remember it. It's anyway, he's the one who does the twister thing, who did the twister thing on Leonard Garcia, and it was a similar sort of thing, if my memory serves me correct. So his record of 12-2. He's fighting Jonathan Brookins, who is a former TUFer, and I really hope that he wins here, and I really think that he will. I don't think that Jonathan is going to pose much of a threat. I'm going to go for decision, though. I will go out and say that he's a decent calibre to be fighting, so I'm going to go for decision there. And Pat Barry versus Shane Del Rosario. You know, Pat Barry's had a hard time recently as well. A striker, and he's a very good striker, but he's not had the best of times pitted against other strikers recently. 7-5 is his record. Shane, 11-1, is also a striker. However, I've looked at the records, and I still think that Pat Barry will win this one. Can't help it, sorry. I'm going to go for a Pat Barry knockout in the second. Also on the card, we've got Colton Smith versus Mike Ritchie, Melvin Guillard versus Jamie Varner, Mike Rio versus John Coffer, TJ Waldberger versus Nick Catone, Vink Pitchell versus Rostam Kabilov, and Johnny Bedford versus Marcos Vinicius, and the sentence goes on. And you can see my full predictions for them at the end of the video. And that is my predictions video for UFC on FX6 and the TUF 16 finale combined.